The thing that there is to understand when it comes to thinking is there's two different types of thinking. The original type of thinking that human minds were designed for doesn't involve language. That the genesis of the imagination is the very reason why human beings do not need the physical strength of a gorilla, orangutan, or chimpanzee. Because what we were able to develop was so much cognitive power that the three-dimensional architecture of reality in the moment wasn't even enough. That we could create an imagination that would exist as a secondary experience of reality that would include the past and the future and have the capacity to generate from nothing scenarios, objects, outcomes, futures, understandings, memories, and give you the power to use this like a navigation tool, that you could strategize capturing a gorilla by understanding everything you've ever observed and then predicting what it would do based on things that you could do. I mean, to such an extent that we could train, wolves and breed them into shepherds, understanding the relationship between a seed and a plant that we want to eat, that the human imagination was a reality generator, and it happens effortlessly, rapidly, and in servitude of the needs and desires of the individual. And it does so without effort, without confusion, and without fear. In fact, fear disappears it, because fear invokes cognitive inhibitions that cause you to concentrate involuntarily on the sources of fear. And so when the human being developed the sources of fear to be their own failure, their own abandonment, their own negation, those people affected that way would lose their imagination. And so that's the difference, is that there were people people that found this truth about the human condition. They documented this. They became our messiahs. They became our Buddhas. They would create practices, meditative enlightenment, or they would talk about the kingdom of God, an experience of being a person that would transcend the rules of the ordinary existence of people, where the stories of the Tower of Babel were powerful metaphors that described the human condition in a world of ego, of a bunch of me's, of a bunch of fear-based projected entitlements, where you can never satisfy the repetitive need to overcome the repetitive experience of being inadequate, that it was insatiable, and that you wouldn't even have enough intelligence to notice that paradox. And the people that did discover this would create methodological approaches in an effort to lay the foundations for others to find this experience themselves. And so I've found that experience. I found it at Landmark, where Werner Erhard created seminars that took Eastern meditative enlightenment, transformed it into transformation, exercises that would powerfully alter the way that reality would show up for a person. And these were life-changing for me. Essentially, restoring me to the ability to be present, outside the boundaries of fears of rejection and failure, setting me free socially and giving me a bigger piece of my imagination back. But years later, I've taken that and I've advanced it further. That I discovered the single moment origin of all human subjective realities. I've discovered it. Now, discovering something like that, when really describing ground up thinking, is observing it. My imagination just kept chipping away every coaching session as I walk people down memory lane, right through their subconscious into the very moment of genesis of ego. They then get to let it go. And so to have created that and have demonstrated and done it countless times, now I'm making the book. It's going to be very challenging for me to explain how I would know that to a world of psychologists when I haven't read a single book on psychology. And I did this during a period of time where I'm being torn apart online and bludgeoned and bankrupted and sued. That's what I do with those types of hardships, is I think about other people like me. And rather than being a victim, I put my time into developing my own methodological approach to cause transformation. In doing so, I realized it was merely restoring normal consciousness, and I needed to find a way to explain it to academia. And I told this to my friend Dr. Poku, who works at City of Hope. I said, listen, Doc, it'd just be like me and you going to the Amazon. You heard that there's someone there who's got the cure to arthritis. And so we participate in their rituals. They tell us everything about why the sun god blessed the tree god and the water god, and they made this special tree bark, and then they do this thing and they put it in there, and then so they gave us this preparation and we took it. And boy, oh boy, my shoulder feels great. But you see, Dr. Poku can take that to the laboratory, and then we could discover the pharmacological realities of it. We would know its half-life in the body. We would know what receptors, the physiology of it. And then he could even start to play with different preparations of it, modifying it. Maybe he could make it pass the liver better, or increase the half-life, or make it target, one receptor over the other. And so he can modify the chemistry of those molecules and then produce it. And so bringing 5,000 years to current times was what I told him I wanted to do. I said that I'm going to work to reconcile the segregated fields of psychology, transformation, including meditative enlightenment, even the teachings in the Bible, with psychology, animal psychology, evolutionary biology, physiology, the autonomic nervous system, childhood development, both psychologically and physically. And I was going to have to take all of that into consideration to generate a singular model of the human mind and human childhood development that would explain all of it, that would explain why meditation works, why transformation works, why methods work, and how that correlates to the exact scientific basis for the formation of human subjective reality, and why these exercises that I can do with anybody inside of an hour and have them experience the same thing that Buddha experienced in a cave just by saying a few things out loud without even looking at trauma. Because if understanding the psychological dynamics that correlate to the neurological pathways that are associated with a cognitive impairment, a blockage of one's awareness that there are cognitive processes that are relegated to subconscious that become part of the consciousness in the moment, that the person increases their intelligence, their awareness, their empathy, and they escape the fear of failure, rejection, and abandonment. And for the first time in their life, while sitting with me on FaceTime, I have to jumpstart their consciousness because they don't even have words to describe the experience of empty and meaningless nothingness, everything nothing, where Now your consciousness takes over outside the boundaries of fear.